Hey, I should kind of show the camera's like right if I sit here. So, what do I want to talk about today? I've been thinking a lot about flow in music. So, I've been reading this book here, and this book is called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. It's a very popular book, and it's about creativity, and it dives into creativity very deeply. The whole purpose of this book is to get you to create with flow. That's it. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I've been trying to stay with the flow as much as possible. And I find it's not just for when I'm making music, but it's just for living life in general. Rick Rubin says there's a time to work and there's a time to rest. There's a time to plant seeds and there is a time to harvest. And before, for me, it was always go, 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 work, work, work. Sometimes I feel guilty about taking a break because I wasn't being productive. But he talks about how it's just like the seasons and life and death, and there's always a cycle and a time for everything. Just how in winter everything dies, and spring there is rebirth, and summer is thriving. There are bugs everywhere, and everyone's alive. And then in autumn there is an aging, and there's a sense of wisdom. And then winter brings cold and a death again. And so I find that in everything that we do, everything around us operates in a life and death cycle. I find even myself, as we're always growing and evolving, we shed an old skin and we are reborn. And then we feel amazing in this new skin. And after a bit of time, we get used to it. And then we start to feel the edges of our world. We start to feel the limitations. And it starts to feel a bit uncomfortable again, like there's more for us, perhaps. And then that day comes again when you break through, and that's the rebirth. So I've started to understand myself more when I take breaks, and I've started to understand myself when I feel like I'm hitting a wall. Even when I get sad, when I feel like just things are not going the same speed, or I'm not moving as effectively. Because what I see it as now is that I'm reaching that wall. I'm reaching that invisible wall, that limitation. And when we reach that wall, we often turn around because it becomes very uncomfortable. You can sense it, you can sense it. But I've started to learn that if I just take care of myself and meditate when I'm reaching that wall, then I can find out how to break through that wall. And that's what I think evolution is. The evolution of the mind is. Anyways, back to flow and how I've been thinking about it in music. Before I used to think, I want to make an awesome EDM track. I want to make this kind of track. And I think it's great to know what you want, but there is also a place where you begin to force something to be something instead of just allowing it to be what it's meant to be. So lately, my process is I try to just build an idea, and then I treat it like it's something outside of me. Like it's not mine. It's almost like a person. And I just feed it. Like I nurture it. You nurture the idea. You water it. You water the plant, and you see how it grows. That's what Rick Rubin also talks about. He says to treat your ideas like seeds. And a seed that is not watered will not grow. So you water your ideas, and then you see where they go. Instead of, I think lots of us do this, and I've done this for so long, and I still fight myself on this, because it's really a battle of the mind, where we create a mold. We have a mold of what we want it to be, and we water the seed, but with that mold in mind. And so we force the plant to grow in the mold, but you're really taking away its potential. And that's the thing, when you see it like that, imagine the plant that grows in the mold. And then imagine the plant that's just free to grow in whichever way it wanted to grow. And think about the potential that is lost. You really have to surrender your own expectations and surrender your own desires. In a way, be selfless with the work and treat it as something you are just taking care of, a being that you are just loving and tending to and doing the best you can for it, like a mother or father does for a child. And when you do so, then it'll be something like you never imagined, but it will grow to its full potential. And I guess it's really a metaphor for life. Like anything that you do in life, anything that your relationships, your friends, you really have to love them without expectations and love them in a way that's where they could be far more than you imagine. And this is something I always struggle with, to accept things as far more than I imagined. We all have a tendency to like to box and constrain the world around us. We like to box our friends. We like to box other people that we see. And we're only doing ourselves a disservice when it comes to relationships. We're only limiting the potential, the kind of relationship we can have, because we're already setting out who they are. And we do it to ourselves too. We box ourselves and we think that we know who we are. We have these labels and we say, oh, well, I'm a musician and I am a man. Like all these attributes that we talk to about ourselves. And every time we say one of these attributes, you're putting yourself in this box that now you have to do everything a man does. You have to do everything a musician does. You have to do everything your ethnicity does. When you take away this box, it just opens up this infinite potential. And it's beautiful to get to know yourself in that way, where you're not those things. That's helped me so much, understanding myself outside of those things. Yeah, there's a book I read that speaks about that. If you want to learn more about that and how we box ourselves in with labels and the potential that there is for ourselves, read Falling into Grace by Adyashanti. It was an amazing book. And you just become so free. You become so free when you're no longer in that box of those things. And you become so free to explore and to be anything you want. Oh, you can't act this way because you are like this. No, sir. No, sir. You can act any way that you want, any way that your heart desires. Oh, you can't act like this because you're a man. You can't act like this because you're a woman. There are no such rules except the rules imposed. And I suffered for so long living inside these boxes and inside these mental prisons. And I see the world suffering in these mental prisons. But slowly and slowly, we are evolving and we are understanding ourselves deeper and deeper. And what's really happening is that we are starting to see ourselves beyond our flesh. We're starting to see ourselves beyond what's on the surface. We're starting to see ourselves as souls. And I asked this question a while back, and it was a really interesting question. I asked, do our souls have a gender? Are we male or female deep down when it just comes to the soul? From my own experience, everyone will have a different answer. But from my own experience, I found that no, the soul is limitless. And this body is not really who I am. It's something that's given to you. The things that happen, the experiences that happen outside, if a tree falls on here right now, that's not who I am. That experience is not who I am. In the same way, all the experiences that ever happen to you are not who you are. And we hold on to things for so long, things that happen to us, and they were never ours to begin with. And in the same way, when you ask the question, who am I? Try to ask that question without saying what you do or what your experiences are, what your ethnicity is, what your age is. Try to say it without something that happened to you or something that was given to you. It's a difficult question. So I started using the idea of flow. I started thinking about the concept of flow a lot in music and art. So I started to treat these projects as seeds and just watering them. And if they don't grow, if it stops growing, then I just don't force it to keep going. And then some works just keep growing and growing. And it's like, whoa, it's almost the growth is blowing me away how fast it's going. And those, I just keep watering them. I keep watering them until it passes. And so I think it's so important, if you want to be someone who creates more with the flow, is to begin to listen to the energy that's around in this work that you're doing. Is the momentum slowing down and the work it's becoming harder to keep going? I feel like you don't have to force it. One of the biggest things that I wanted to change, one of the biggest evolutions I wanted to make, I had this goal this year, is that I wanted to work more with feeling than with my mind. And this is exactly what I mean by flow. We're not trying to think our way there. We're not trying to think of the solutions to finish a project, but we're trying to feel them. Because I've spent so long in front of a computer trying to think my way through how I'm going to master this, where do all these elements go? And oh my God, it's like walking through the mud, and you put in so much energy, but you get this tiny, tiny return, and it doesn't really feel right. But then when you work from your heart and your feeling, it just begins to flow so smoothly, and you're putting in energy, and you're getting like 100% of return, and it's just flowing and flowing, and you don't even know how you're doing it. You don't know how you're doing it. That is the beauty. It's like there is something else that's pushing you. And so that's why I made the decision that I need to focus on to cultivate feeling and to cultivate flow. And I think as an artist, this is what you really need to cultivate. Technical ability is also needed, but it's a weapon that becomes utilized once you're in your feeling. When you're in your feeling, then you use the technical ability and you don't even think about it. And when I started cultivating feeling and flow, it's just so many things started changing in my life and in my music. And I started not forcing things. Like, there's so many things you can force in music. You make so many decisions in one project. You make hundreds and thousands of decisions. And every one of those decisions can go wrong when you're not in flow and when you're trying to force something for another purpose. So it's not by chance whether you make the right thing. It's really about falling into flow, and then you will always make the right decision because you're just flowing like water. Some of the examples of decisions you make, it's like not forcing melodies, not forcing a certain pattern to come in right there just because it was there earlier. No, it's about being so present in the moment and asking what is best in this situation, and I don't care what's done before or my expectations. What best serves this track right now? And that's a difficult question. It's a difficult question because it requires you to be there, present, and in flow. There's no other way. For so long, for my drops, I used to put a ton of melodies right when the song drops. And I thought, because it makes it bigger and it makes it sound more impactful. And then I started realizing that, hey, maybe it's okay if it's just the kick and the bass playing for the most impactful part. The thing I realize more and more when I start to listen to new music and I'm more inspired is that there are really no rules. You're always going to see people breaking the rules and they're acting in flow. Yeah, that's something I always realize. I'm like, wow, this person did put the kicks like this. Oh my God, this person was playing a bass line and then they changed the bass line halfway through the drop. And I almost think, I didn't know that was allowed. And it's a crazy thought that I'm setting these expectations of what I think is okay and not okay. When you enter a state of flow and you start living your life with flow instead of forcing things to be a certain way, you start to notice when you go outside and you walk and when you talk to people, you're more comfortable because you're just trusting your flow instead of asking yourself how you should be acting or how things should be or what is expected. And I've only started to feel that recently. I feel it in my body that I feel so comfortable and so trusting that what I'm doing is totally okay because as long as it's with flow with myself, then it's going to be right. The moment I start doing something that's not in flow, not who I really am or not how I feel, then it starts to break apart. And I know it's really hard. I know it's so hard and we're all struggling with this. We're all struggling to be ourselves, to be our real selves, our real, authentic, raw selves deep down. Because our society doesn't cultivate that. Our society doesn't encourage that. And I think so many people are suffering because they're not able to be their authentic selves. Because it's really like you're trapped. You're trapped. And for all you artists out there, this is the most freeing thing and the thing that will elevate your art to the greatest degree. And it's been my focus for 4 or 5 years now. It's been my primary focus in this life. I don't care about anything else. I just care about exposing this rawness and being alive, because to me that's what it means to be alive. When I tell myself that it needs to be quiet and not say something, or that I can't be myself, to me that's a form of a death. It's a death of my soul. I feel so alive when I tell people how I really feel, whether that is love, whether that is anger, whether that is sadness. I feel so alive when I confess to myself. When I confess to myself the pain, when I confess to myself the love, I feel so alive when I confess. It's just so crazy how much we hold in our body and how much we keep hidden in walls and how much energy we use to store those things. And I do it so often. It really pains me. And I used to do this so much more. And then I would go through this moment of confession and be like, hey, I have been really sad. I have been so depressed. I have been so angry. Or I was so hurt by this thing that happened. And the moment I do that, oh my God, I feel so alive. And I'm just brought back to life. And to me, that is rebirth. That is rebirth to me. And that is when my skin sheds and I am awake at a new level and I feel older. You feel you've come to age in those moments. That's my favorite feeling, because then you feel so in control again. You almost put your pride down too. It's like, yeah, I've been angry. Like before, it's like you didn't want to admit it. You didn't want to admit you were angry. You didn't want to admit you were hurt. But now you are ready. You are strong enough to admit it, and you conquer that. And that's so hard in this world. It's so rare. It's rarely being taught. We're starting to move in that direction, but we are so far away. We're so far away about expressing ourselves and expressing our vulnerabilities. I think what changed for me is I realized that expressing my vulnerabilities is strength. And that I was more afraid holding on to that look of intimidation and that look of everything is fine and that I am strong. I realized that there was more fear ingrained in that than in me being soft and playful and being like, yeah, I was hurt by that, and me crying. I found so much strength in that. I found so much strength in being small, in being a child, and wanting to huddle up in a blanket. Because when I do that, then it gives me so much room and it sheds away so much pain and so much truth. And then I can be strong, where I can be so strong and I can be a lion and I can roar and I can flex all my muscles. And I feel so big and so strong. And this is what I've learned, is that there's a time for everything. And it goes back to flow. We can't be strong and tough and a winner all the time. You can't be that all the time. Nobody is that. There's a time to be small, there's a time to be big, and there's a time to be everything in between. There's a time to be a lion, there's a time to be a bird. The more I accept this, is the more I accept my feelings, and the more I accept myself when I do feel small. Because that was the hardest thing for me to accept. I thought I always needed to be big, I always needed to be a winner, and I always needed to be in charge and in control. And it's hard to do that because you have to let your guard down. For some of us, that is a very hard thing to do because we've been hurt before when we become soft. But something I learned, there are two kinds of strength. There is a concrete slab, it's rigid strength. rigid strength. It has no flex. It just stays rigid. It's tense. And then there's a kind of strength that is flowing, almost like a muscle. It can be so soft. But when it wants to, it can be so strong too. And if you look at your muscles, when a muscle is healthy, it has the ability to be soft and it has the ability to be strong. And traumatized muscles, the ones that become dormant, are the ones that stay flexed all the time. When you injure yourself, your muscles stay strong all the time. They become rigid all the time. So I see our soul the same way. I think true health is softness, flexibility, and power. All of those things. Thanks for sitting here and being with me. I want to do this more. Just these casual talks about just all the things that I'm really passionate about. What my real goal here is, I've been trying to approach this YouTube thing for a while, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was going to contribute. There's a lot I see on YouTube I don't like, and then I see things that I do like. What I've realized now is that I'm going to contribute my world and just the reality of my world, because I feel like we need more of certain realities, because I see so much pain and anger and I guess toxic behavior online, and sometimes toxic behavior is like masked as something good. But when you watch it as an outsider, you can see clearly that there are other intentions behind it. So I guess my goal here is I want to contribute my world, and I want to show you what the world of ELXR looks like. Both the light, the dark, the good and the bad, the struggle, the pain, the strength. I'm really excited because I was so afraid before to sit here and talk, because I guess I was now ready to be myself. And this is the closest I've gotten to doing that, and it makes me really happy. It makes me so happy. I'm so proud. I'm really proud. And I'm excited for what's to come. I'm excited to pair all of this with creativity and music, and using my music skills and my editing skills to give off the vibe that I want. I love you guys. Thank you everyone who has supported this journey. Some of you be commenting often, some of you be commenting every now and then. And I appreciate all of that. I appreciate all the silent subscribers and anyone who's on this journey and has been following me. Okay, I think that's that. Okay, bye.